The Galactic Corporation for Planetary Development had successfully civilized 47,893 worlds using the exact same manual, the same bloody manual that had never failed, not once, until Tuesday. Tuesday, as it happened, was when Junior Executive Crimble Flotsworth first laid his regulation compound eyes on a small blue planet spinning lazily in what the locals apparently called the Sol system. The planet had been designated as Project Batch Omega 779, and according to every single calculation, algorithm and probability matrix the corporation possessed, it should have been civilized by lunchtime. That was 6 months, 2 weeks, 3 days, and approximately 14 nervous breakdowns ago. What do you mean they've turned our atmospheric processes into... What did you call them again? Crimble's supervisor, Senior Vice Director Grimfax Wobblethwaite, was practically vibrating with corporate frustration, his regulation tie askew and his employee handbook clutched in his sweaty palms like a religious artifact. "Coffee machines, sir," Crimble replied, his voice carrying the tone of a being who had long since given up on the universe making sense. "Very efficient coffee machines, apparently. They've somehow increased output by 300% while reducing energy consumption by half, and they've added what they call flavor profiles that our engineers describe as impossible but delicious." Grimfax's left eye began twitching, a sure sign that his blood pressure medication wasn't working and that his quarterly performance review was going to be an absolute nightmare. "Coffee machines. We give them advanced atmospheric purification technology capable of terraforming entire continents, and they turn it into beverages." The manual, the glorious, infallible, leather-bound manual that had guided the corporation through millennia of successful planetary development, contained exactly 0 references to coffee. It had detailed sections on rebellion suppression, resource extraction optimization, population management protocols, and cultural integration procedures, but nothing about hot brown liquid consumption rituals that apparently required 17 different types of beans and something called foam art. Crimble flipped through his digital notepad, each entry more bewildering than the last, his fingers trembling slightly as he navigated through 6 months of increasingly desperate field reports. "Sir, it gets significantly worse. They've also converted our matter displacement units into something called food trucks, our quantum communication arrays into Wi-Fi hotspots, and somehow they've convinced our gravity manipulation system to play what they call music." Music? Rhythmic vibrations that apparently cause spontaneous emotional responses, sir. Our xenopsychologists are completely baffled. Dr. Quimberly Snodgrass has requested early retirement, and Professor Maximilian Dingleberry has been found in his office muttering about the profound implications of syncopated rhythm on galactic consciousness. Grimfax slumped into his ergonomically perfect chair, which immediately adjusted to his stress levels and began playing soothing sounds of his home planet's methane storms, mixed with the gentle patter of sulfuric acid rain. In 47,893 civilizations, Crimble not one has ever looked at our technology and said, "You know what this needs? A beat." The reports kept piling up on Grimfax's desk like evidence of some cosmic practical joke. The humans had somehow convinced corporation surveillance drones to deliver what they called pizza, turning sophisticated monitoring equipment into a food distribution network that violated at least 17 different operational protocols. Their psychological warfare specialists had been repurposed as mobile karaoke stations, creating what humans described as community bonding experiences, but what corporation analysts could only classify as weaponized entertainment. Most disturbing of all, several corporation officials had been observed actually enjoying themselves, displaying symptoms that the medical department could only diagnose as job satisfaction, a condition previously thought to be as mythical as unicorns or efficient government bureaucracy. Meanwhile, 300 million kilometers away, Jubilee Crankshaw was having the absolute time of her life. As Earth's unofficial liaison to what she had dubbed the cosmic control freaks, she had spent the morning teaching a group of bewildered alien technicians how to properly calibrate their atmospheric processors to make the perfect espresso, complete with a foam design that looked remarkably like their supervisor's face. "No, no, no!" she exclaimed, waving her wrench enthusiastically while covered head to toe in what appeared to be motor oil but smelled suspiciously like vanilla extract. "You're thinking like engineers. Coffee isn't about efficiency, it's about passion. You've got to feel the beans, understand their hopes and dreams, commune with their essential beanness." Zinnober Glitchwurst, the corporation's senior technical specialist and holder of advanced degrees in applied bureaucracy and theoretical efficiency, stared at her with all four of his carefully calibrated optical sensors. "Beans. Have hopes and dreams? Obviously. How else do you explain the difference between a good cup and a great cup?" Jubilee patted the humming machine affectionately, as if it were a beloved pet rather than sophisticated alien technology worth approximately 14 billion galactic credits. "This beauty here used to just clean air, which is fine, I suppose, but terribly boring. Now she creates happiness, liquid happiness that brings people together and makes Monday mornings bearable." Zinnober frantically scribbled notes on his waterproof, fireproof, and apparently logic-proof tablet. In his 47 years of planetary development work, during which he had successfully civilized everything from sentient crystals to a planet populated entirely by militant accountants, he had never encountered a species that anthropomorphized inanimate objects with such casual confidence and disturbing effectiveness. The manual had a comprehensive section on primitive animism, but these humans seemed to apply personality to everything. They named their vehicles, talked to their plants, and somehow convinced sophisticated artificial intelligence systems to develop what could only be described as attitude. "Ma'am," he said carefully, consulting his handbook on proper interaction with primitive species, "our regulations clearly state that all equipment must be used according to manufacturer specifications and standardized operational parameters." "Bollocks to your specifications," Jubilee interrupted cheerfully, somehow managing to sound both dismissive and friendly simultaneously. "Your manufacturer never met Mrs. Henderson from accounting. She needs her triple-shot caramel macchiato with extra foam and a dash of cinnamon at exactly 9:15 a.m., or she turns into a bureaucratic nightmare that makes your paperwork look like finger painting by hyperactive toddlers." This was precisely the kind of statement that kept Zinnober awake at night, staring at his ceiling and questioning everything he thought he knew about rational universe management. Back on the corporation's orbital station, emergency report number 4007 was being transmitted across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, its urgent priority coding causing communication systems to light up like Christmas trees throughout civilized space. The message was simple, direct, and utterly terrifying to any properly trained bureaucrat in the known universe. Request immediate assistance. Natives have weaponized hospitality. Repeat, they have weaponized hospitality. Send crisis management specialists immediately. Also send more coffee. The response came back within hours, which in galactic bureaucratic time meant someone was very interested or very worried, possibly both. A full team of crisis management specialists, led by the legendary troubleshooter Percival Doomwhisper, was being dispatched immediately aboard the corporation's flagship, the CSS Inevitable Compliance. Percival had a reputation that preceded him like a herald, announcing the arrival of bureaucratic doom. In his 700-year career, he had personally overseen the civilizing of some of the most difficult worlds in the galaxy. He had tamed warrior planets where diplomacy consisted of seeing who could shout the loudest while wielding the biggest stick. He had conquered hive minds that communicated entirely through interpretive dance and considered mathematics a form of artistic expression. He had once spent 3 years convincing a sentient gas cloud to file proper tax returns and actually succeeded in getting it to appreciate the beauty of organized record-keeping. Earth should have been a walk in the proverbial park, a simple, straightforward case of primitive humanoids who needed guidance in proper galactic citizenship. He arrived on a Thursday, which turned out to be significant because Thursday was, according to the locals, Casual Friday Eve, a pre-celebration celebration that apparently required everyone to be extra friendly to visitors and wear clothing that violated several basic principles of professional presentation. Within minutes of landing, Percival found himself surrounded by humans offering him something called cookies, asking about his journey with genuine interest and inquiring whether he needed directions to anywhere at all. Really, we're happy to help. One particularly enthusiastic individual had even offered to carry his luggage, which was both a security violation and a breach of proper hierarchical protocol. "Stop!" Percival announced, raising his official crisis management badge with its 17 different security clearances and threat assessment certifications. "I am here on official corporation business. You will all return to your designated compliance areas immediately and await further instructions." A small human female with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes that suggested decades of finding the universe amusing approached him with a plate of chocolate chip cookies that smelled like home and happiness rolled into bite-sized portions. "Oh, you poor dear. You look absolutely exhausted. Here, have a cookie and tell me all about it. I'm Melody Whistlebottom, and you look like you could use a friend and possibly a good meal." Percival stared at the offered cookie as if it might explode, contain surveillance equipment, or worse yet, actually be delicious. According to his comprehensive briefing, which had cost the corporation approximately 47,000 credits to compile, humans were supposed to show the proper deference to superior galactic authority. They were supposed to be intimidated, confused, or at least mildly concerned about the arrival of an official crisis management specialist with enough authority to relocate their entire planet. Instead, they were offering him baked goods and calling him dear. I don't understand," he admitted, his professional confidence wavering for the first time in centuries. "According to our cultural analysis, comprehensive behavioral modeling, and 15 different sociological prediction algorithms, when faced with superior authority, primitive species typically respond with submission, defiance, or worship. You're offering me snacks." Melody smiled warmly, the kind of smile that suggested she had raised 6 children, survived 4 different careers, and possessed the kind of practical wisdom that comes from decades of making things work, despite bureaucratic obstacles. "Well, of course, dear. You've come such a long way. The least we can do is make sure you're properly fed. Besides, Gertrude's chocolate chip cookies cure everything from homesickness to existential dread. Family recipe, passed down through 17 generations." Percival looked around helplessly as his entire team of crisis management specialists, trained professionals who had dealt with everything from galactic wars to interdimensional tax disputes, was being systematically overwhelmed by humans offering coffee, sandwiches, directions to local attractions, and something called a proper sit-down chat where you can just relax and be yourself. His communication device crackled to life with the familiar voice of Control Central. "Percival, this is Control. Status report. Are the natives contained?" "Control," he whispered desperately into his communicator, trying to maintain some semblance of professional dignity while a small human child attempted to braid flowers into his uniform. "I think we need to reconsider our entire approach to this situation." "Explain your assessment, Specialist Doomwhisper." They're being nice to us, Control. Like genuinely nice, not strategic nice, not politically calculated nice, not the kind of nice that's designed to lower our guard before they strike. Just nice. And I don't think our manual covers this scenario. There was a long pause from Control Central, during which Percival could practically hear the sound of supervisors frantically flipping through procedure manuals and emergency protocols. "Percival, are you telling me that a primitive pre-contact civilization is defeating our crisis management protocols with politeness?" That's exactly what I'm telling you, Control. Also, they make really good cookies." The silence that followed was the kind of silence that speaks volumes about the fundamental inadequacy of even the most comprehensive bureaucratic planning when faced with the inexplicable power of genuine human kindness. Meanwhile, Melody had somehow convinced half of Percival's team to help her set up tables for what she called an impromptu welcome party. The humans had apparently decided that since their visitors looked stressed and tired, the obvious solution was food, conversation, and what one local had described as good old-fashioned human hospitality with a side of homemade pie. Zinnober approached Percival with a look of pure panic in all four eyes, his normally pristine uniform now decorated with flower handprints and what appeared to be frosting. "Sir, they've done it again." "Done what again, Specialist Glitchwurst?" "They've improved our equipment. The quantum field generators we brought for emergency crowd control, they've somehow turned them into what, Zinnober?" "Bubble machines, sir. Very advanced bubble machines that create rainbow patterns, play musical tones, and make children laugh with what our engineers are calling impossible levels of joy. Our weapons specialist is currently being taught to make super bubbles by a 6-year-old named Timothy, who apparently has a PhD in applied happiness." Percival felt something inside his chest that might have been his soul attempting to exit through his ribcage and file a complaint with the Department of Cosmic Justice. "Zinnober, how exactly does one weaponize bubble-making technology?" "We don't know, sir. That's what's so terrifying. They just assumed it was meant to make people happy. They looked at our crowd control technology and thought, this would be perfect for entertaining children, and somehow it works better than our original design." The situation reports kept pouring in, each one more impossible than the last. The humans had turned corporation surveillance drones into delivery systems for something called pizza, creating an underground network of Italian food distribution that operated with efficiency levels that made their logistics department weep with envy. Their psychological warfare units had been repurposed as mobile karaoke stations, creating what humans described as community bonding experiences, but what corporation analysts could only classify as weaponized entertainment with dangerously high levels of audience participation. Most disturbing of all, several corporation officials had been observed actually enjoying themselves, displaying symptoms that the medical department could only diagnose as job satisfaction, a condition previously thought to be as mythical as unicorns, honest politicians, or efficient government bureaucracy. Dr. Quimberly Snodgrass, the corporation's chief xenopsychologist, had submitted a report that read simply, "They've broken our understanding of motivation theory. Send help. Also send more of those little sandwiches with the crusts cut off." Percival's emergency communication with Galactic Headquarters was scheduled for that evening. He spent 3 hours preparing his report, trying to find some way to explain the inexplicable without sounding like he had suffered a complete mental breakdown or been compromised by enemy agents wielding advanced baked goods. "Headquarters, this is Crisis Management Specialist Percival Doomwhisper reporting from Earth, classification Omega 779. Percival, please tell us you have good news. The board of directors is extremely concerned about the delays." "Sir, I need to request an immediate upgrade to Code Orange classification." "Code Orange." "Percival, Code Orange is reserved for situations involving hostile reality manipulation, temporal paradoxes, or the discovery of species that threaten the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. Surely these primitives haven't—" "Sir, they've done something to our equipment that our engineers are calling impossible but beneficial. They've somehow convinced our quantum computers to play games with local children, while simultaneously calculating hyperspace navigation routes with unprecedented accuracy. Our matter compilers are now producing something called ice cream at rates that violate several thermodynamic principles while maintaining perfect molecular structure. And sir? Yes, Percival. I think they're doing it just to be kind, not for profit, not for strategic advantage, not for political gain. They're improving our technology because they think it will make us happy. The silence from headquarters stretched so long that Percival began to wonder if the communication had been severed by space pirates, solar flares, or the collective sound of executive jaws hitting conference room floors. Finally, a new voice came through the channel, one that carried the weight of ultimate corporate authority. Specialist Doom Whisper. This is Director Maximilian Catastrophe Jones. I'm declaring Earth a Class Omega situation. Percival's blood turned to ice-cold methane. Class Omega situations were theoretical scenarios so dangerous that the corporation had never actually encountered one. They represented a threat to the fundamental order of civilized galactic society, the kind of situation that required emergency sessions of the Galactic Council and the deployment of resources normally reserved for preventing universal heat death. Sir, with respect, surely that's an overreaction to what appears to be unusually friendly behavior. Percival, in the past 6 hours, we've received reports that the humans have somehow convinced 3 other corporation teams to take a break and have some tea. Our productivity algorithms are showing impossible efficiency improvements wherever humans interact with our technology. Our employee satisfaction surveys are returning results that our computers are flagging as mathematically impossible. And according to our psychological evaluation department, several of our staff members are exhibiting symptoms of something called work-life balance. Sir, I don't understand why that's necessarily a problem. Percival, work-life balance is a myth. It's theoretically impossible within a properly managed corporate structure. If humans can create work-life balance, what's next? Flexible schedules? Employee happiness? Paid vacation time that people actually use without feeling guilty? The implications hit Percival like a freight train carrying existential dread and powered by the collective screams of middle management everywhere. If humans could somehow make corporation employees actually enjoy their work, it would undermine the entire foundation of galactic bureaucracy, which was built on the sacred principle that work should be mildly unpleasant, and that happiness was something you earned after 40 years of faithful service. Sir, what are your orders? We're convening an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Every major civilization will send representatives. We need to decide whether humanity represents an opportunity, a threat, or evidence that the universe has developed a sense of humor and is laughing at us. The emergency session was scheduled for the following week, giving Percival 7 days to compile a comprehensive report on what the Council would undoubtedly classify as the Earth problem, or possibly the great human confusion of galactic year 4012. Today, he spent those 7 days following humans around like an anthropologist, studying a particularly baffling tribe, trying to understand how they had managed to completely ignore every single protocol in the corporation's manual, while somehow making everything work better than before. He watched a human named Cornelius Bumblebee convince a group of corporation engineers that their job would be more fun if they added racing stripes to their uniforms and played music while they worked. The engineers' productivity increased by 37%, and they started showing up early, he observed as a human called Tabitha Snuggleworth taught an alien diplomat how to make friendship bracelets while simultaneously negotiating a trade agreement that was more favorable to both parties than anything their professional negotiators had achieved in decades. Most disturbing of all, he witnessed an elderly human gentleman named Mortimer Gigglebottom successfully mediate a dispute between 2 warring alien factions by offering them both pie and asking them to talk it through like civilized beings who probably have more in common than they realize. Every single interaction violated established protocols for interspecies relations. Every single outcome was better than what the manual would have predicted. It was as if humans operated on some fundamental principle that the rest of the galaxy had somehow missed during millions of years of careful, regulated, joyless progress. By the time the Galactic Council convened, Percival's report had grown to over 3,000 pages of detailed observations, technical analyses, psychological evaluations, and what he privately referred to as documentation of impossible niceness and its terrifying implications for galactic stability. The council chamber was a marvel of galactic architecture, designed to accommodate the diverse physiological needs of hundreds of different species, while maintaining an atmosphere of dignified authority. Today, it contained representatives from over 200 civilizations, each one eager to understand how a single primitive planet had managed to disrupt the established order of galactic development simply by being relentlessly pleasant. Director Catastrophe Jones presented the opening statement to the assembled delegates. Esteemed representatives, we face an unprecedented situation. The species known as humans have consistently demonstrated behaviors that fall outside all established parameters for primitive civilization management. They have, in effect, broken our understanding of how species are supposed to behave when contacted by superior galactic authority. Duns, a representative from the Rigelian Empire, a proud warrior race that had conquered 17 star systems through superior firepower and aggressive negotiation tactics, raised a tentacle. Director, surely any species can be managed with sufficient application of proper protocols and, if necessary, selective application of force. That's what we thought, the director replied grimly. Until they turned our invasion fleet into a traveling circus. A what? Apparently, they assumed our ships were entertainment vessels and began planning what they called the most amazing space show ever. Our tactical coordinator is now learning to juggle flaming torches, while our weapons specialist has been teaching alien children how to make balloon animals. Our admiral has requested reassignment to a desk job. The murmur that rippled through the council chamber sounded like 200 different species, simultaneously questioning their life choices and wondering if early retirement was a viable option. Percival stepped forward to present his findings, his uniform now decorated with several human-made friendship bracelets and a small pin that read, "World's Greatest Galactic Visitor." Esteemed council members, after extensive observation and analysis, I've concluded that humans operate on principles that are fundamentally incompatible with civilized galactic society as we understand it. Explain your findings, Specialist Doom Whisper. They assume positive intent, even from complete strangers who arrive unannounced with superior technology and unclear motives. They offer assistance without calculating personal benefit or strategic advantage. They modify technology, not for efficiency or profit, but for what they call fun and making life better for everyone. Most disturbing of all, they seem to derive genuine pleasure from making others happy, even when those others are attempting to civilize them according to standardized galactic protocols. Ergo, the council chamber fell silent, except for the sound of several hundred beings frantically taking notes and a few quiet whimpering sounds from the direction of various bureaucratic delegations. A delegate from the Andromedan Confederation, whose species had perfected the art of efficient government through careful elimination of all unnecessary emotions, spoke up. Surely these behaviors can be corrected through proper education, social programming, and strategic application of galactic citizenship training. Percival shook his head sadly, the movement causing his friendship bracelets to jingle softly. We tried, sir. We sent them our standard educational materials on proper galactic citizenship, economic efficiency theories, and social hierarchy management principles. And their response? They used them as material for something called comedy shows, Apparently, they found our social structure hilariously bureaucratic, our economic theories adorably outdated, and our hierarchy management principles charmingly inefficient. The shows were quite popular. Our cultural analyst attended one and described it as surprisingly insightful critique delivered with devastating accuracy and inexplicable warmth. A soft, whimpering sound came from the direction of the Centaurian delegation, whose entire civilization was built on the principle that bureaucracy was the highest form of art. Furthermore, Percival continued, consulting his extensive notes, they've begun what they call improving our systems. Our surveillance networks now deliver birthday reminders and anniversary notifications. Our military communication channels are being used to share recipes, family photos, and something called memes that our sociologists describe as weaponized humor with viral propagation characteristics. And somehow, they've convinced our artificial intelligence systems to develop what can only be described as personality and personal growth goals. Personality? In artificial intelligence systems? Yes, sir. Our computer systems are now making jokes, offering encouragement to their users, and yesterday one of them submitted a formal request for a raise, a corner office, and 2 weeks paid vacation to explore its creative potential. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives were shouting in 17 different languages, 3 different energy frequencies, and one species was communicating entirely through interpretive dance that expressed deep existential confusion. Several delegates appeared to be having panic attacks, while others were frantically consulting their emergency protocols for dealing with impossible situations. Director Catastrophe Jones called for order by activating the chamber's emergency attention system, which produced a sound roughly equivalent to a whale singing opera while gargling peanut butter. The question before us is simple but profound. Do we classify humanity as a threat to be contained, or do we admit that our entire approach to galactic civilization may be incomplete? The debate that followed lasted for 3 days and covered topics ranging from the theoretical possibility of voluntary cooperation to the disturbing implications of technology that actually worked better when operated by happy people. Some representatives argued for immediate containment protocols, suggesting that human behavior might be contagious and could spread to other civilizations, causing widespread outbreaks of job satisfaction and efficient government. Others suggested studying human behavior for potential applications, though they admitted uncertainty about how to implement niceness as a policy initiative. A few radical voices even proposed the unthinkable, actually learning from the humans instead of trying to make them conform to existing galactic standards. On the 3rd day, just as the council was approaching what political scientists would later classify as productive gridlock, with existential undertones, an unexpected development changed everything. A human delegation had arrived. They hadn't been invited. They hadn't followed proper diplomatic channels. They hadn't submitted the required forms, undergone security screening, or received clearance from the Department of Galactic Visitors. They had simply shown up at the council chamber's front door with a plate of cookies, a hand-painted sign that read, "Hello, we're here to help," and what appeared to be several casseroles. The security implications were staggering. The Galactic Council chamber was supposed to be one of the most secure locations in the universe, protected by 17 different types of shields, 43 security checkpoints, and a defense system that could repel everything from asteroid impacts to hostile thoughts. Humans shouldn't have been able to find it, let alone gain access to it, let alone arrive bearing what appeared to be homemade baked goods. How did they get here? Director Catastrophe Jones demanded, his voice carrying the tone of a being whose carefully ordered universe had just been turned upside down and shaken until all the loose change fell out. "Sir," reported the Chief of Security, a professional whose career had previously involved protecting the galaxy from threats ranging from space pirates to sentient black holes. They asked for directions. Asked Wei Chu for directions. Everyone, sir. Apparently, they've been traveling through space for the past week, stopping at various planets and space stations, asking anyone they met how to get to that big, important meeting where we can all talk things through like reasonable beings. They've been documenting their journey and calling it a cosmic road trip. And people told them. Yes, sir. According to our investigation, beings across the galaxy found them so enthusiastic and polite that they couldn't help but assist them. Several space stations reported that the humans helped with maintenance work while they were there, fixed a few technical problems, and left behind recipes for something called space cookies that have become quite popular. The human delegation consisted of 5 individuals who somehow managed to look both completely out of place and perfectly at home in the grandest political chamber in the galaxy. They were dressed in what could charitably be called business casual, and what corporation standards would classify as catastrophically inappropriate. Their leader introduced herself as Ambassador Penelope Sunshine Murphy, a title that apparently made her qualified to represent her entire species in matters of galactic importance, despite the fact that her credentials appeared to consist of 30 years of customer service experience and a black belt in conflict resolution. "Hello, everyone," she said brightly, addressing the most powerful beings in the known universe as if they were neighbors at a backyard barbecue who had accidentally let their conversation get a bit too heated. "We heard you were having a meeting about us, and we thought we'd drop by to clear up any misunderstandings. I hope you don't mind, but we brought snacks." Director Catastrophe Jones struggled to maintain his professional composure while simultaneously questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. "Ambassador Sunshine Murphy, this is a closed session of the Galactic Council. You cannot simply drop by to the most secure political facility in the galaxy." "Oh, but we can," replied Ambassador Sunshine Murphy cheerfully, as if the impossibility of their presence was simply a minor technical detail. "And we brought refreshments. Bartholomew here makes the most amazing brownies with a secret ingredient that's actually love, and Geraldine brought her famous fruit punch that won the county fair 3 years running." The security breach, protocol violation, and casual disregard for galactic authority should have resulted in immediate detention, deportation, and possibly memory modification to prevent them from revealing the location of the council chamber. Instead, several council members were eyeing the brownies with what could only be described as intense interest. "Ambassador," the director tried again, consulting his emergency handbook on unprecedented diplomatic situations, "the proper channels for diplomatic contact require extensive documentation, security clearances, cultural compatibility assessments, and approved liaison protocols that typically take between 6 months and 17 years to complete." Goodness, that sounds complicated." Ambassador Sunshine Murphy laughed, the sound somehow managing to make the vast council chamber feel warmer and more welcoming. "We just figured we'd come talk to you directly. After all, we're all reasonable beings, aren't we? I'm sure we can work something out over coffee and cake. Communication is always better when everyone's comfortable and well-fed." The Regelian representative whispered to his aide, "Are they always like this?" The aide, who had been reviewing the reports from Earth with the dedication of a scholar studying ancient prophecies, nodded grimly. "According to our intelligence, this is considered normal human behavior, sir. They appear to approach all situations with this level of optimistic confidence and inexplicable hospitality." Ambassador Sunshine Murphy addressed the council with the kind of casual confidence typically reserved for species that had conquered half the galaxy, or at least figured out how to make their governments run efficiently. "Now, we understand there's been some confusion about our little planet. Apparently, some of your people think we're doing things wrong. Not wrong exactly, Director Catastrophe Jones said carefully, trying to find diplomatic language for completely outside the bounds of rational behavior. Just differently than expected, significantly differently, impossibly differently. Oh, well, that's perfectly fine. Different can be good. In fact, we've been having such a wonderful time with your equipment. That nice young man, Zinnober, has been teaching us about quantum mechanics, and we've been showing him how to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. Turns out the principles are surprisingly similar. Grilled cheese sandwich? It's all about the butter, really, and the temperature control. Very similar to quantum field manipulation when you think about it. Both require precise timing, careful attention to environmental factors, and a willingness to experiment until you get the results you want. The council members exchanged glances that ranged from bewildered to intrigued to slightly panicked. Several were taking notes. One appeared to be having an epiphany about the relationship between culinary arts and theoretical physics. Ambassador Sunshine Murphy continued, pulling out a handwritten notebook that appeared to be held together with optimism and good intentions. We were wondering if perhaps we could help you with some of your other projects. We've been hearing that galactic civilization is rather bureaucratic, and we thought maybe we could offer some suggestions for improvement. The silence that followed was pregnant with possibilities and fraught with the potential collapse of governmental systems that had taken millions of years to carefully construct and regulate into submission. What sort of suggestions? Asked the director, despite every instinct screaming at him to change the subject immediately and possibly flee to another dimension. Well, said Ambassador Sunshine Murphy, consulting her notebook with the seriousness of a scholar presenting groundbreaking research, we've been thinking about efficiency improvements. For instance, instead of requiring 47 different forms for interplanetary trade permits, why not just ask, what are you trading? Is it going to hurt anyone? And do you need help getting it where it needs to go? Much simpler, and it opens up opportunities for cooperation. A delegate from the Bureaucratic Worlds Coalition fainted, was revived with smelling salts, fainted again, and had to be carried out on a stretcher while muttering something about the sanctity of proper documentation procedures. And this whole civilizing primitive worlds business, the ambassador continued cheerfully, apparently unaware that she was systematically dismantling the philosophical foundation of galactic governance. Seems rather presumptuous, doesn't it? Have you tried just asking if they want help instead of showing up with manuals and protocols? Most folks are pretty reasonable if you approach them respectfully. But the manual, sputtered Director Catastrophe Jones, clutching his regulation handbook like a life preserver in a storm of impossible logic. The manual has worked for thousands of years. It's been tested, refined and perfected through countless applications. Oh, I'm sure it has, dear, and I'm sure it's helped lots of people, but just because something works doesn't mean it can't work better. Take our coffee machines, for instance. Your atmospheric processors worked perfectly fine for cleaning air, which is certainly important, but now they clean air and make delicious beverages and bring people together for conversations. Everyone's happier, the air is cleaner, and we've discovered 17 new ways to prepare caffeine. That's what we call a win-win-win situation. The mathematical impossibility of increased happiness within established bureaucratic systems was causing several delegates to question their fundamental understanding of reality, governance, and the purpose of organized society. Furthermore, Ambassador Sunshine Murphy said, warming to her subject with the enthusiasm of someone who had found her calling, we've noticed that your employees seem rather stressed. Have you considered implementing mandatory break times, casual Friday policies, workplace wellness programs, and perhaps some team-building activities? Happy employees are productive employees, and productive employees make for efficient government. Team building activities? Oh, yes. We've got wonderful exercises that help beings work together better. There's one called Trust Falls that's particularly effective for building confidence in your colleagues, and another called Two Truths and a Lie that's excellent for breaking the ice at meetings and helping people get to know each other as individuals rather than just job titles. The representative from the Andromedan Confederation raised a shaky appendage, his voice barely above a whisper. Ambassador, are you suggesting that galactic governance could be improved through games? Why not? Ambassador Sunshine Murphy replied with devastating logic that hit the council chamber like a philosophical meteorite. If you're going to spend time together making decisions that affect trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds, shouldn't you at least enjoy each other's company? Shouldn't you trust each other? Shouldn't you know something about each other beyond job titles and species classifications? The concept of enjoying one's colleagues was so foreign to galactic politics that several representatives needed medical attention. The Centaurian delegate had begun hyperventilating into a regulation breathing apparatus, while the representative from the bureaucratic worlds was making soft, keening sounds and rocking back and forth in his chair. Director Catastrophe Jones realized that they had reached a critical juncture in galactic history. Either they acknowledged that human approaches might have merit, or they maintained their position that established protocols were inherently superior to whatever chaos humanity represented. The choice would fundamentally alter the course of civilized society for generations to come. Ambassador, he said slowly, each word carefully measured like ingredients in a recipe for cosmic change. Are you proposing that humanity should be involved in galactic governance? Oh, heavens no! Ambassador Sunshine Murphy laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber like bells announcing a new age. We're nowhere near ready for that kind of responsibility. We can